So,
how do you want to start off? Like, you want to just start talking? Like, this is Bickering Brothers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, and welcome to the first installment of Bickering Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm the brother.
Yes. He does not get a name.
So, I guess, the movie we're talking about today.
Yeah, the movie we're discussing today is The Dark Knight Rises.
So, I guess I'll preface this. I don't hate The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I've seen worse movies. It is still for what it is, if you were to take it out of the context of the film trilogy that it's in, if you were to take it out of the context of Batman in general, it's not that bad of a movie.
It's not that good of a movie either.
That great. It's kind of just, alright, you got a large special effects budget, but it's still very well directed, it's still very well acted. That was one thing I kept talking to him about while we were watching it. The movie itself is not bad. Like, the actors, like when they say certain lines, you can believe that they are actually who they say they are, except for Bane. Well, yeah, minus if you actually, I feel two ways about that. If you took Bane out of the movie completely, I think you'd have a much stronger movie. You dealt with just this whole Batman dealing with his loss. Alfred doesn't want him to be Batman anymore, but he's got to go back out and be Batman. And he's got, the cops are hunting him, and then if you take all of that and you just, insert in some other reason why the city is under attack, you have that. I think would be a fine movie. And or the other way, flip it the other way and focus on just Bane, this character Bane, and remove all the other characters. Remove Selena Kyle, remove Talia al Ghul, remove what's his name, John Blake.
Yeah.
If you remove those other characters and focus on just Commissioner Gordon and Batman and Bane, which is what made the second movie so good.
Yeah, The Dark Knight was so good because it was just Batman, the Joker, and Commissioner Gordon. And
Harvey. It was those four.
Yeah.
That was it. Yes, there was side characters. There was Fox, Lucius Fox. There was Alfred. There was, other characters that are less important. But it was those four that made up the main cast of that movie. Whereas, so look at the cast of the movie. You have Batman. You have Bane, you have Selena Kyle, you have Talia al Ghul, so already there's your four. But then you also have, playing a huge part, you have the Commissioner, you have John Blake, you have that other cop guy that...
You have Bane's right-hand man.
Even then you've got Alfred, you've got
You also have Lucius Fox again, even though he left at the end of Dark Knight. Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the title.
The title. The Dark Knight Rises. You already know that they're just trying to gravitate off the flow of The Dark Knight. They're not even trying to be original. It's just going to be trying to recreate the majesty that was The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight being one of the best movies that came out of that genre.
I would go as far as to say the best movie of that decade.
That is also true. And The Dark Knight Rises is just the most boring attempt to try to just keep that flowing without actually being original.
It is The Dark Knight again. It's instead of, so when you start, and this is what bothers me, is you have these three, they're in a trilogy, they're supposed to be. So imagine in a world where we didn't get The Dark Knight Rises, we got some other film that was, then you'd have three separate films. You have Batman Begins, which is all about Batman. It's all about his origin story. It's all about his internal struggle with, dealing with the difference between, vengeance and justice and being a hero versus, being a murderer. And you have this, as well as, this kind of twofold villain, this kind of, is it Ra's al Ghul? Not Ra's al Ghul.
Oh, that was another thing, but that's for another video.
Do you have Scarecrow?
You've
got.
Bothers me. So
but you have and everybody has clear motivations with what they're doing. Scarecrow, is a drug dealer. That's all he is. All he does is deal drug. He's not an anarchist. He's not. No. All he does is provide drugs to Ra's al Ghul. What's Ra's al Ghul's point? Well, the League of Shadows, the point of their organization is to cut off the corruption from the world and destroy. So ultimately, they decide they need to destroy Gotham City, which they're not wrong. It's a pretty crappy city.
It's a pretty bad place for most of the people to live there, so it's not really worth keeping at that point.
So you have that. That's Batman Begins. You've got a clear theme of Batman, of Bruce Wayne finding himself. He's like, I'm going to be a symbol. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. The second movie is all about the consequences of that symbol. The mob had never seen, without Batman, if the Joker were to show up to the mob, they would be, what's going on here? And they would have just capped him, and that would have been the end of it.
But because of Batman, he created a world where the Joker could actually exist.
Exactly. That was the theme of the second movie. The theme of the second movie was not only was the consequences of the first movie. The first movie had this setup of, I'm going to be this symbol. It's not going to work out the way you want it to. It's going to be, you've got people like the Joker that now the mob is turning to. You've got people, the Joker might not even have existed, let alone been able to do it in his free reign. But then you also had the personal struggle that Bruce Wayne had to deal with Rachel and losing Rachel, which again, I'm fine with that bit. It's not in the comics or anything, but I'm fine with that being an overarching
It's an adaptation, it has to have its own setting.
But, so then you do that. So you have the consequences, and it ends on the note of Batman saying, this is what I have to do. This is the consequence of what I started, and he takes it upon himself to take the consequence and say,
this is what I have to be now.
And in the third movie, they throw that all out and start over. And you get this movie it's just the Dark Knight again. It's just the consequences of the first movie. They went back to the first movie. The only thing that really carries over is Bruce Wayne anguishing over Rachel, which, again, not in the comics, so that's not a strong point to carry between movies, in my opinion. And the Harvey Dent Act, which is brought up like 3 times. The second movie didn't build on the plot of the first movie. It took elements from the first, took the situation from the end of the first movie, for sure. Obviously, Maroni is, or is it, right, wait. Yeah, Maroni.
Yeah.
Who's the other one? Falcone. Oh, Falcone's the one that is in the first movie.
Falcone's the one that is axed off in the first movie.
Right. And so they take that, so Maroni's now in charge. They take the situation from the first movie, but they don't build off of any of the plot of the first movie. Whereas this one builds solely off the plot of the first movie.
Yeah.
And that it's not a movie that stands alone. You don't know what's going on. You don't need to know anything about Batman and who Batman is and what to watch The Dark Knight and enjoy it. Because it's a movie that stands on its own. Same as Batman Begins, not as good, but it does stand on its own because it's an origin story. This one relies so heavily on you knowing what happened in the previous 2 films. And that I don't think was a smart idea. That's the situation that we have. In most adaptations of Batman, Batman is not trusted by the police other than by Commissioner Gordon.
Exactly.
Go back to the animated series, none of the other cops liked Batman. And he would sneak into the police station to talk to Gordon.
They would put up with him, but none of them liked him.
And I like that, because, and what I also don't like is that The Dark Knight Rises goes to this situation that, you see a couple of the kids still believe in Batman, but you telling me that none of those cops believe that Batman didn't do that? It goes full on, full frontal assault. Nobody says, maybe he was doing some good work too. I understand that, you could say,
Batman's killed 6 people, allegedly. We have to hunt him down
That's
above all the other criminals that are committing crimes in the city right now.
Bring the 500 police cars after him. Where did we get all these police cars?
Who knows? Why does one city have that many police cars that don't do anything except chase Batman? Who knows?
But it's... I understand if you tell me that, we gotta, create a... And that's one of those things that happens because the plot demands that it happens. The plot demands that Bane gets away. Because if Bane doesn't...
The movie of mumbles and conveniences.
Yeah, let's not talk... We'll talk about mumbles when we get to...
Yeah, let's talk about Bane. 90% 90% of his spoken dialogue is inaudible.
And what you can understand, you wish you weren't understanding.
Like, there's no better way to make this character supposedly scary.
And then the speech that he gave outside of the prison was just painful to listen to.
Yes, it was.
Like, Tom Hardy's a good actor.
Tom Hardy is a great actor. He did awesome in Mad Max and other films, and like Inception and stuff.
He was great. I watched Peaky Blinders because he was in it.
But he really did not shine through in Dark Knight Rises.
So now part of this, people could say, is because of the costume. So they had to redub all of his audio.
Well, yeah,
because the original, if you
mask was way too quiet.
So, but if you did go see that, it was not a success as opposed to
the bank robbery scene.
The bank robbery scene was like everybody was bowled over. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, the Joker! This is going to be great." Whereas nobody could understand anything Tom Hardy was saying as Bane, and it was a complete failure.
And then when they redid his lines, you still can't understand what he's saying because he sounds like he has a mouthful of marbles.
But it's not even that. It's the weird inflection he puts on his voice. That like.
Did you hear?
I wonder.
Like, what are you doing, man?
So when the scene when they're fighting each other, Batman and Bane, that first scene, and his voice changes a couple times. I almost wonder if that was the original dub of that dialogue. He was shouting so it was loud enough you could hear it. I almost wonder because it's so different from the other voice.
It actually sounds a little clearer right there.
But it's so different from the overdubbed voice, and it actually is kind of menacing. And except then he goes back to when he was whispering, and they have to overdub it because like he gets louder when he's not, I was blinded. When he's not, he gets louder when he's talking normally because they overdub. I think it might be. It's my theory, and I thought that just watching it this day. We just watched the movie again.
Yeah, because it's been a while. Neither of us have this on DVD, so
neither of us ever wanted to watch it again. But so I thought that when I was watching it again, and I wonder if that was true because it's so different. His voice is so. I almost wonder if it would have been better if they hadn't had to overdub it. Which gets me to say, all right.
And maybe instead of that crappy mask he was wearing, if he was wearing an actual luchador mask, he could actually speak properly, maybe that would have allowed the performance to actually be Tom Hardy's performance.
So another problem with Bane, that everybody's admitted is a problem with Bane, is when Talia al Ghul does her reveal. So if I'm going to make changes to this movie, I'm going to try not to change very many things because we got the movie that we got, and it would be one thing, we could sit here all day and talk about things they could have done for a third
literally hours of just what could have been.
So we'll say, knowing the movie that we got, what I would have done, instead of using Tom Hardy as this big, muscular, I would have, if I was the director, I would have gone to the Caribbean and had a casting call in the Caribbean, and I would have found a no-name actor of Spanish Caribbean descent, which is what Bane is supposed to be. And I would have had Bane actually be a no character. His name is Bane, and he's got this, that way, because if you're going to use the plot of the movie that we got, which strips Bane of all of his mythos and all of that.
Exactly. As soon as Talia does a reveal, it's like, hey, that character you thought was interesting.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I'm gonna put one at the beginning of the video.
Spoiler alert, Talia al Ghul stabs him in the back. Which is not actually a spoiler. Anybody that watched that movie, as soon as they talked about Ra's al Ghul, it was like, oh, well, Talia. Oh, well, who's the woman character that's important that we don't know? Anyway, we don't know her name.
Literally, as soon as Talia does her reveal, it's like, oh, I'm Talia al Ghul. It just completely strips Bane of any interesting backstory. He's literally just that generic bump on a log who has no story at all.
So if you go and you get some no-name small guy from, or maybe just a big, muscly...
But even so, that's another thing. Because we were talking about this while watching the movie. Bane should have had the Venom. He should have been able to turn into, the big, menacing guy, but he should have normally been a little, smart, intelligent guy. Because it's like, oh, well, we wanted to make this movie more realistic. Well, you already have, the most unrealistic scenario ever set up. Yeah. First off, as soon as Bane was talking, after, blowing up half the city and was talking on the microphone, the military would have already been in there and executed him, taken the bomb somewhere else. Immediately, the military in the movie is displayed as being completely inept to actually doing anything. all the police also would not be underground. Like,
all 3,000 of them. Why does Gotham have 3,000 police officers?
Exactly. It's like, oh, there's like, one guy and a couple of his friends hiding out in the sewers. Send everybody down there. Let's go.
And another thing, send everybody all in the same spot. There's only the one area they can enter the sewers, so they're all trapped in that same spot.
I mean, and there's no other way to get out of the sewers because you blew it up. You can't just crawl out a random sewer grate. But anyway.
Yeah, right. They show, now it shows the guards, right? Because they show Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, with the messages through the sewer.
Yeah.
Like, you can't pop one of those and
get those guys out of there?
Get some guys out of there every once in a while?
I mean, there's clearly no one guarding it.
But, anyway. Bane, back to Bane.
Back to Bane.
But what I was saying is if you find this,
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about. Like, how, like, you could use the Venom, because it's like such an unrealistic scenario where it's like, you could have Ra's al Ghul actually be immortal. You could have Bane using this super formula to make him stronger. That is, like, more believable than half of the, like, scenarios we're presented with in the film.
And then, so you get some no-name Spanish Caribbean actor to play Bane. Again, just some small, scrawny guy to play, almost like, to play Scarecrow's character as this, so he's this savvy businessman. He's not this big, tough mercenary. And then he becomes the big, that's why Batman goes after him. When you get that nice, which actually is a very effective scene when they're fighting in the sewer and there's no score, which I love. But that's when you get that scene. So Batman goes because Batman can take him down.
But then he realizes that he's got the more Venom of the person that he thought.
Then all of a sudden, he takes the Venom, he bulks up, he's huge, and he just wails on Batman.
And breaks Batman's spine. That's what Bane does. Not just dislocates one little disc.
Yeah.
No, he breaks Batman's spine in half. Batman's out of commission for like 6 months, which is an unrealistic healing time.
Batman's out of commission for the rest of the movie.
It's crazy. But then, think about it. Rather than Batman coming back and saving the day, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, what if he donned the Bat costume? He wouldn't be as good, but what if he donned the costume, inspired people to rise up, and actually fought off, like was able to overpower Bane? That would have been a much better ending. But anyway, so back to Bane. Back to Bane. So we're going to continue talking about Bane. So, and that's, I mean, I wouldn't change a whole lot. Again, the one thing I would remove the whole prison sequence entirely. How does Batman get from one side of the earth to the other with no money and, like, no one even knows he's over there or anything?
And, that whole thing.
The only thing that brought him back was the plot.
But again, and another thing, the whole, Bane's just the figurehead. Well, no, in this case, in our movie, Bane is a figurehead until Batman wails on him. But again, even if he's just that, so now Bane is this character that he's this small, calculating businessman. And but now he's this, big, huge, tough guy. He's not always this tough guy. He shouldn't be on, the liberating Gotham. I think the speech when he has the bomb should be, guys, I have a bomb. I'm going to blow the city up if anybody tries to, they blow the bridges up. I'm going to blow anybody up if anybody tries to leave. And
that should literally be the only thing he's trying to do, is keep all his hostages until
the bomb goes off.
Till the bomb goes off, which is what Ra's al Ghul wanted anyways. I don't know why he's like pretending to give them false hope and all this like Dark Knight Rises themes. It's like they overuse the whole Rising theme. It's
Absolutely.
Because it's just so stupid.
The Rising should be Gotham Rising. It should be, alright, so everybody's sad. There's looting, there's, all kinds of police are like all trapped underground except for the few that weren't. And you know what I'm saying? The Rising should be Gotham Rising
and showing that it deserves to live.
Right, deserves this hero, Batman, because that's the thing. Because that would then connect it back to Commissioner Gordon's thing at the end of the last movie. It's not the hero that we need right now, but it's the hero they deserve, to show that they deserve this hero, Batman. But
they're still trying to fight for themselves. In this movie, as soon as Bane does anything, they all just give up.
Especially this is Gotham City. We're supposed to believe that Gotham City is mostly crime-ridden.
And all these people just give up like they don't even care.
Dude, they show you shots of like Selena Kyle where she lives. You tell me that all those people would just like panic
You can't have
Bane's
both.
taken over. Okay.
You can't have both. You can't have Gotham City as this scourge of the underworld that needs to be purged and this nice place where all these nice innocent people live. You can only have one, and we established that Gotham City is the scourge of the underworld.
There's no way those criminal bosses that were presented in the last 2 films are just gonna sit and let Bane take over the city for them.
Because here's the thing, you could say, oh, well, all the criminals are locked up now. No, all the criminals that were, really deep in their crime or really high up in their crime, most of the normal people that were kind of just taking advantage of the system would probably just stop.
Yeah.
And then you could get this rising. You could get Gotham rising. You could see, and so Bruce Wayne is out of commission, and that's he's out. And then you don't have to have any of the awkward Alfred confrontation about he wants him to stop. Well, he has to stop now.
He can't move.
He can't move because he's broken. And then you can. And then
you have Joseph
Joseph
Gordon-Levitt's character as the Batman comes to fight Bane. And Bane is like, I broke you. How did you come back?
Exactly.
But he doesn't have to explain anything. All he has to say is, I'm Batman. Stop Bane from using his venom and take down Bane.
So now Bane's taken down. Then Talia al Ghul can make her reveal. That it's not Bane that was behind all of this. Bane is just a mercenary.
What a twist. It was the other character that
because now Bane is a character, because even though he's not the one that this was his plan to take down Gotham, he still broke Bruce Wayne in half.
Exactly. He's not just this worthless character that did nothing for the movie.
And then you get this, you can show the city rising, and then even so, oh well, Talia's actually behind all of this, and and everybody's like, oh dude, I didn't see that coming. She's this character we've never heard of that's now suddenly a villain. Who would have guessed?
What were the other points we wanted to talk about besides Bane?
I'm not done with Bane yet. Actually, no, that basically covers Bane, right?
Yeah, we're pretty much done with Bane there.
Get rid of Tom Hardy. I love him, but he did a terrible job.
He's just not, he's not Mexican enough.
Find some... That's Spanish. We're not Spanish.
Spanish, Caribbean. He's just not, he's not ethnic enough. Tom Hardy's a good guy, he's a good actor. He's just not Bane.
So, alright, so let's talk about Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. Robin.
What a stupid way to introduce that character.
Can you see his face? I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah, why don't you tell your anger with this character?
When I saw The Dark Knight Rises in theaters for the first time, this was a packed theater. We saw it opening weekend. It wasn't the first night, but it was the Saturday or Sunday, the first night. Packed theater. And that happened. I've been watching the movie.
It was alright,
Right. I've been enjoying the movie.
I didn't see it the first time with my brother. We both saw it our separate times before.
We then both went back and saw it again. So it was good enough to get us back in the theater again.
Oh, it was, the first time you're watching this movie, you don't have time to process or anything. It's a good movie. You're like, oh yeah, there's nothing really wrong here. How did you get there? But you gloss over things because it's a good enough movie. But then you get the reveal of what his supposed real name is.
Oh yeah, try my birth name. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for this character to be Robin,
think about
right?
it. How cool would it be? His birth name is Richard Grace. You don't even have to have Grayson. Just Richard or something. That would have been perfect. I want everyone who you're obviously talking to the fan base of Batman at this point. Anyone would know that Richard is Dick Grayson's name. Everyone would know that is Robin.
And they pull this. You should use your real name, Robin. And I actually said out loud, you gotta be kidding me. I actually said that out loud, and everybody that was around me thought it was wicked funny.
I
actually yelled out loud. I yelled out loud. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
That is, it is literally the worst phoned-in excuse for that character at all. Because you've clearly shown that this character is not Robin. He is going to be the next Batman. Right. So why make him Robin? That doesn't make any sense. That's just a little nod to the fan base, but all you did was make us so angry.
It's... Yeah. Which I
Who names their boy Robin? Come on.
Right.
That's a girl's name.
I almost wonder if that was the studio thing. If the studio was like, you have to make some nod to this being Robin.
But they could have done a much better job.
They could have, but...
Seriously.
That's why.
When he walks up to Gordon the first time, it's like, who are you? Detective Grayson. How cool would that be?
Dude, I would have pooped myself. I would have been like, oh my god,
That would have been the best reveal of all the movies.
Or, actually, I had another thought about using, alright, because Dad, our father, brought up a point, we are actually related.
Yes, we are.
Our father brought up a point, well, not enough of the people seeing this movie. This movie's not made for nerds like him and I.
Yeah.
It's made for the general public, and not enough people would recognize Grayson or Richard or, any of the other, Jason Todd or Tim Drake or whatever. So I had a thought, because I've been thinking about that since then, 2-3 years ago, whenever this movie came out. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was working for Commissioner Gordon. Batman brings up that point, you should wear a mask, it's to protect people around you.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of that conversation already in the movie. What if Commissioner Gordon has that conversation with him? Oh, you can't let people see your face, we're working undercover now. They're gonna get to, if they hack our radios, because they're communicating via radio at one point, right?
Yeah.
They can
use the code
They can
name,
use code names. What do you want to be called? And he says, my father, before he died or whatever, called me Robin for whatever reason. Who knows? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't have a reason. You can make up any reason you want, which would be better than, use your birthday, that girl. It's not even her fault. That was definitely like a studio people decision. But seriously, how cool would that be? It's like, we need code names so people don't know that you're talking to me, that I'm not talking to you.
Commissioner Gordon's held capture or something, and I don't know, who cares?
We could make anything about that.
Anything would have been better than that, but I actually had that thought. I was like that, and I would have been okay with it. That's not how it worked, but I'm okay with adapting the source material.
Once again, it's an adaptation, but still, you have to have choices that make sense. And making your character's name Robin is just so stupid, it doesn't make any sense to the movie.
So we talked about the name, Dark Knight Rises, which is dumb. They should have called it Nightfall, after the comic book that Bane was introduced in. I don't know why they didn't. It's such a sick name to begin with.
So we talked about the name, we talked about Bane, we talked about Robin.
We talked about Robin. We can talk about Catwoman, or Selena. She's not technically called Catwoman, which I like.
Very good.
Anne
Hathaway as Selena Kyle is
phenomenal.
Absolutely perfect.
Perfectly cast.
She's like this little scared girl, but as soon as Bruce points out to her that he knows that she stole her beads, she immediately drops that and goes right into playful and is like, "Oh, really? Well, I'm out of here."
So the problem that we have with her, because we have a problem with her, we have a problem with everything that happens in this movie.
Is her motivations.
It's the motivations of the character.
Her motivations is her character is that she wants a clean slate, and that's not what Selena Kyle wants. Another problem we had is that she wants to help people, and that's also not Catwoman. Catwoman only wants to help herself, and she loves being a thief. She loves getting the attention. She loves being right in the limelight.
We were talking earlier about harking back to the previous films. You want to talk about borrowing themes? Here's the thing. Selena Kyle, because the success of Batman has never been Batman, it's always been his villains. Yes. They show different sides of him. The Joker shows his, the Joker in The Dark Knight brings up this crazy point of, you're just like me, we're the same, blah, blah, blah.
We created each other or something.
Two-Face represents his duality between Bruce Wayne and Batman, and Selena Kyle can represent what it means when you're just after vengeance and not justice.
And it also
calls back to the first movie.
And it also brings out a point in Batman's character where Bruce Wayne loves Selena Kyle, but Batman has to take Catwoman down. That is who he is. Batman cannot allow his symbol himself to fall down to the points of a man and be in love with Selena Kyle. Same thing with Talia. In the movie, when Talia al Ghul
does her
little reveal on Batman, Batman is so heartbroken, he can't even fight anymore. It's like, no, literally, he sits there while she has her little, exposition binge. I know, it's... no, she has her exposition binge for probably about, 10 minutes.
It's 2 minutes, actually.
2 minutes, but, Batman is just sitting there crying about it. It's like, Batman, you're not doing Batman things right now. Seriously, you get stabbed. Oh, she broke your heart. Guess what? You're Batman. You take her down.
You don't have a heart. You go anguish about it. See, but that was something that was done so well in The Dark Knight. Batman, he would fight, he would do this, and
he lost Rachel, but he didn't mourn about it until after the situation was dealt with.
Right. He was Like, but he would be fighting, he'd do this, and then...
He still did even when he realized he went to the wrong location and got to Harvey, he still did everything he could to save Harvey Dent before worrying about Catwoman.
And then you saw him, he was trying to take down the Joker, like he's, like, so you can't even say that the stab wound had anything to do with it, because he's got the, he's like stitching himself up from the dogfight at the beginning of The Dark Knight.
Also, he's wearing armor.
Right. You're gonna get
reinforced armor and Kevlar.
So
even if it's like the world's sharpest knife, you poked him a bit.
You're still gonna
He's still wearing this much of like Kevlar. That's like gonna stop most of that knife.
So, So it ultimately then comes down. So it's not a physical problem. It obviously shows later in the movie that it's not. It's a heart problem, and that bothers me because
he's Batman. He doesn't have those.
Right. He's not supposed to have a heart. That's the whole point, which
actually, that's another thing. Batman has a heart, but he doesn't let it interfere with his mission.
Even if it does, but see, here's the thing. We established this movie's so long, by the way, but for the first 2 hours of the movie, it's all about, I can never move on from Rachel. Well, apparently you did move on from Rachel.
Because you flirt with Catwoman, you flirt with
Talia.
Talia.
I'm fine with. Catwoman's always been flirty, but you cannot be betrayed by Talia al Ghul.
You spent 2 scenes with her.
2 scenes in this movie, but
No, 3. Because he spent the ballroom scene with her, he gave her the device, he saw her at the boardroom, and then he saw her again when
at his house.
At his house.
And that was it. That was the end.
And then
so
once
4.
again before Bane took her away.
Yeah, like 4.
There's basically 4, and most of those are not helpful scenes.
Most of those are just exposition dialogue scenes we need to establish that things...
It's like, this is happening, go do things.
So, you cannot tell me that the rest of the movie that spent built up, I love Rachel, I loved Rachel, I love this, I love that. That's all. So that whole heartfelt thing with Alfred is thrown out the window when Batman is devastated that Talia betrayed him. That right there is like, whoa, you can't have both. Which is the story of this movie, of having both. You can't have both. Gotham be the scourge of the underworld and be a nice place where
you
nice
can't have Batman have a strong relationship with Talia while still mourning the loss of Rachel that heavily.
Right.
Like, it's clearly evident since he's been locked up for 8 years, he's not letting this go. For some reason, this one childhood friend has devastated his life.
Whatever. But whatever, you gotta be consistent.
You can't. This movie is anything but consistent.
The Night to Dark, which happens twice.
The stock exchange one, because it makes sense for they started in the day.
Actually.
Well, yeah, it starts in the day, the stock exchange. Because why would the stock exchange people be there in the middle of the night? But then Batman shows up and it's
nighttime.
It's the middle of the night because Batman's more dramatic in the night.
But I know, and here's the thing you could say, oh, well, maybe, like at the close of business kind of deal, it gets, in the wintertime it gets dark, but it's summer because it's winter 4 months from now. So it has to be summer. It has to be like August. So the sun should be up till 8 o'clock. No, there's nobody at the stock exchange at 8 p.m.
Everyone goes home at 4. And also, the other time they did it is, Gordon and their little crew gets captured by Bane's mercenaries and brought to court, and it's the middle of the day. And then once again, it's the middle of the night, and Batman saves them. It's like, is Batman only allowed to come out at night? That they just wait around for hours at a time to get these people moving?
Which is fine, as you say. Well, Batman only really works at night because he's Batman. He's the night.
Exactly.
All right, that's fine. Why do they then have the final battle the next morning?
In the middle of the day.
Right. It's like, well, all right, so that falls down. So no, it's just poor continuity. What bothers me, the continuity in The Dark Knight is the best continuity of a complicated plot I've ever seen.
Exactly. Batman Dark Knight Rises is so inconsistent. There's no consistency throughout any of that film. It just, because it tried to live up to something it could not, because Christopher Nolan wasn't given the time he needed to make this movie what it could have been.
The studio, and here's my thought on what this happened, I've read some of this, or some of this is based on sources that I've read, some of it's just kind of intuition, that Christopher Nolan was not interested in coming back right away to make another. Obviously, he went and made Inception, which was insanely popular. But then he was not ready to come back right away to make another Batman film. As far as I understand, he didn't have a story written. He didn't want it to get stale with, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't ready.
Too many films at once and all that. So he wanted to give
studio
it some time.
wanted the studio wanted another Batman film.
And they they basically told him, we're gonna do this with or without you. And because film directors are very possessive of their projects, he's like, no, this is my trilogy, I'm gonna close it.
I'll finish it. Which it worked out for them, it made a boatload of money, and so that, or they offered him too much money that he couldn't refuse. They offered him an absurd amount of money.
That could be as well.
But I have a feeling it's more along the lines of they were going to move on without him, and he was like, well, because that's the thing. What he would have come. It's not to say he wouldn't have come. He would have come back to this movie to
eventually, because that's what he wanted to do.
I just don't think he was ready. I think he was. I don't know if he was going to make another film in the meantime, or if he was just not ready to make another Batman film.
Except for Morgan Freeman's character.
Just shouldn't be there.
Lucius Fox, he left at the end of The Dark Knight, so that's it. You should have hired someone else to be his tech guy. I mean, yeah, everyone loves Morgan Freeman. Who doesn't love Morgan Freeman? But he left because Batman broke his trust. He used his machine to spy on everyone in Gotham, and that was a huge thing that was a moral issue for Fox. And he's like, I'll do this one last thing for you, and then I'm gone. So then why is he still the head, guy at Wayne Enterprise? Is it because Batman needs him to be there?
Well, it's not because the studio wants Morgan Freeman again.
No, I know, but how cool would it have been if the guy who is running the R&D department now was the guy who figured out that Bruce Wayne was Batman in The Dark Knight? Because he's like, Coleman Reese. How cool would that be?
That would have been a wicked cool Easter egg. He's only on screen for 10 seconds, and you're like, hey!
Yeah, he walks up, good to see you, Mr. Wayne. Is there anything I can do for you today? And Bruce is just like, no, I think I'm all set. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked us and you want to see more of us, you can leave a like to let us know. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time, because even if you don't like us, we're coming back.